going on, everybody? I did something really exciting. Ended up getting a new bike. Like my last videos, I had a Street Glide Special 2017, and I feel like I've done a big upgrade going into this 2019 Road Glide Standard. The Road Glide versus the Street Glide seems to be a never-ending battle. Riders have usually a preference to one or the other. I want to let you know why I ended up doing this. I still love the Street Glide. I had so much fun on that bike. And the biggest difference between the two is this fairing. This fairing directs airflow differently than the Street Glide. And the word differently is very important because for some people, it's way more comfortable on the Street Glide or the Electric Glide than it is on the Road Glide. For myself, my height, the way I sit, the way I ride, this fairing was the ultimate. This fairing is also bolted to the frame instead of being bolted to your handlebars. So when you move your handlebars, which I can't right now just because I've got it up on the lift and in the vise, but you might be able to see a little bit of movement there. There's no change in the fairing. Nothing moves in the fairing when you move your handlebars. Now, when you're going down the road, obviously when you go through a corner, you're not cranking the handlebars all over the place. So whether you're in a Street Glide or a Road Glide, your fairing's pretty much staying stationary. But you do feel the weight that's on the handlebars. And before I got this bike, I was like, yeah, but the weight's still at the front of the bike. It's still hanging over that front tire. I don't see how that's going to make that big of a difference. It does. It really does. And you got to try it to believe it. I absolutely love this bike. I feel like it handles way better. I'm way more comfortable. I feel like I have more control. And the most important thing for me was the wind buffeting. So the wind buffeting was driving me crazy on my Street Glide. I tried lower wind deflectors, fork-mounted wind deflectors. I tried the hard lowers, soft lowers, and the biggest thing that I think helped, besides a taller windscreen, was the hard lowers that Harley makes. But it was still, going down the road at 60, 65, you were getting so much wind buffeting. It was nuts. And it drove me crazy because Harleys are known for being touring bikes. They're supposed to be comfortable on the highway. I mean, it's got everything it needs. It's got cruise control, it's plenty of power, 6-speed transmission, stereo that goes super loud. You can hear it on the highway. Everything was just set up right for the bike. Why was I getting wind buffeting? It was just driving me crazy. So when I got the opportunity to try out a Road Glide, I did, and there was absolutely no buffeting for me. If I do start going way above the speed limit on the highway for any reason, it does get to a little bit choppy, but at that time, if you're pushing it for some reason, you're usually tucked into the fairing a little bit better, and you're riding a little tougher, and you don't care about a little extra wind. And if you tuck in behind the fairing, there's not much. The benefits of this, I feel like for me, which changed the buffeting, was where this top vent is located. So this top vent, yes, the Street Glide has the same thing, but it's directed slightly different. So this top vent hits me pretty much straight on the helmet. And that might sound like a bad thing, but the air coming through that is smooth. It's ducted to you, so it's smooth air constantly. Even if you're behind a truck, a car gets in front of you, they're kind of close. People are used to just getting that buffeting from a vehicle in front of them. But it's ducted through that vent, and it's nice and smooth when it hits your helmet. Now, what it does when it hits your helmet is it smooths out the air that's coming around your helmet. At least that's what I find for me. Somebody different height, it's going to be different airflow. But for myself, it smooths out the air around my helmet. It makes it a lot quieter, smoother. I can go any speed, and this bike is super comfortable. Now, the other benefits of this fairing are the vents that are down lower. And these can open and close on the 19s. The new 20s, they're open all the time. But on the 19s and prior, they open and close just like you can see here. And that helps definitely get some cool air into you. So I've stayed much cooler on this fairing than I ever did on the Street Glide. With the Street Glide, I had to have so many things like a tall windshield and lowers, wind deflectors and stuff like that, just to try to minimize the buffeting, that I had no airflow left. This bike, the bars come back a little bit more than the last one, and it's definitely a more comfortable riding position for me. It's more upright, so I would say some people that have some back issues, that position might bother them. You might, look into maybe a different seat or a backrest, which has helped me the most. It's definitely a different position that some people may like, some people may not. It's definitely up to you. But for myself, it's the most comfortable position. I have lower back issues. I had a pretty serious accident years ago that's left my spinal cord damaged. And I find that a backrest on this seat helps me to be able to go for a long time. Between good suspension, nice, comfortable, customized seat from Mean City Cycles, like another one of my videos I explained, and that's really done the trick for me. So these handlebars coming back has been a blessing for sure, and this fairing just helps so much. One of the biggest things that I noticed when I first got this bike is I went around a steep mountain pass, which hopefully someday I'll be able to show you guys on video, Route 17 or the Appalachian Gap. Everybody calls it the App Gap around here. Going around there's some super sharp corners, and they immediately flip-flop. You're going hard right in first or second gear because it's so sharp, and then you immediately go just as hard left. And taking the Street Glide through there felt like I was maneuvering a humongous bike. It was like driving a school bus through there. But this bike, I could drive with a pinky. I mean, you go from one corner to the next. It doesn't feel out of control whatsoever. It's like you're in a boat and you go from turning right to turning left, and it's that nice, smooth, you can feel the boat kind of mush into the water, and you just take the other direction. And it's so much nicer. I felt so much safer and more stable on this bike, more comfortable. And what's kind of interesting that a lot of people don't talk about when they're going with this road glide versus street glide kind of argument is my wife on the back also noticed a big difference. So when we test rode this bike before we bought it, she said she feels a lot more secure on the back when doing tight maneuvers. So we did some turnarounds, some really tight turnarounds in a parking lot, and she didn't feel like she was going to get catapulted off the back seat. She kind of felt that way on the street glide. I used to love doing kind of slalom turns in the middle of my lane and a straight shot if I was bored with the bike on the street glide, and she used to always smack me and say stop doing that because it felt very uncomfortable to her on the back. With this bike, I can do it all day long, and she smiles and laughs and thinks it's great. So the differences in kind of the chassis and how that fixed fairing changes that has definitely helped the handling by quite a bit, and definitely worth going with the road glide fairing. This fairing is much larger. It's further away from you, so you feel like you have more room. Plus the bar setup kind of makes you feel that way because you sit back a little bit more. There's definitely more storage in this fairing. This fairing's got larger compartments. I have a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, which is a pretty large phone. I can fit it in this compartment. There's plenty of room. The left side is similar. It opens the same way, but it's a little bit smaller. I can't fit my phone on that side. If you had a normal size phone, you probably could. So the new bike is it's a road glide standard, like I said. It's still got the 107, which I've ridden the 114. Yes, it does have a little bit more pep. But I like the chrome. The chrome's more durable. It doesn't show scratches. It's easier to clean. It's a little bit more classic looking, which I've always liked. And the difference in price between the specials and the standards was like $4,000 or $5,000. And for me, getting a little bit bigger engine just wasn't worth it. I mean, I could customize the bike and put a set of pipes on it and get the same performance increase that I'd get from a 107 to a 114. So it wasn't that big a deal for me. I had the 107 in the Street Glide. It was the only engine they offered in that year, 17 when it came out, and I was totally happy with it. There's been some small changes that a lot of people don't know about. about the 107 going through the newer years. They've increased kind of the ruggedness of the clutch in the 19s and later. So this has the little bit more rugged clutch. In the 20s, they put a little bit larger oil pump. This engine's got great power, plenty enough for me and my wife on the highway, needing to pass a truck or whatever. It's totally fine. The 107 to the 114, you don't get that much performance increase that it's worth the money to me. So this is it's been a great bike for us. I'm looking forward to put up many more miles on it, and I hope the discussion on the fairing and kind of the differences with the bike versus the street glide versus the road glide might help you guys make a decision if you're in the same boat or having the same troubles maybe with wind on the street glide that I had. There is some nice things about the street glide. It does feel a little bit less intimidating because it feels like a smaller bike, but definitely worth taking at least a test ride on the road glide to see what you think.